My name is Andrew Austin, and I'm with Sure Shot Game Calls. I'm going to go over some of the basics of calling ducks.
This is the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast, where we interview conservationists, hunters, anglers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the greatest stories, information, and advice from the best in the world.
Well, the quack is the most important part. Just you're blowing from the diaphragm, you're blowing hot air, you're using your hand to form the quack. And so that's a basic, very basic of duck calling. And when you hold the call, you just want to grab it just like that and get a little cup like that.
So you're putting it between your thumb and your forefinger?
Yep, just like that. Mm-hmm. Hold it just like that.
Does it matter where the label is?
No, okay. It doesn't matter. Some calls it does matter, not with these. Gotcha. Not with the ensign. You know, your hand placement is very important because that's going to affect your sound. When you give it, this is called back pressure. When you cup your hand, it's going to change the sound. Mm-hmm. So you always want to stay in this range from about here to here, because there are times when I like to open it up, but generally you want to keep it with a little bit of back pressure. Then you put it up to your lips, and you're blowing hot air, and you're blowing from the diaphragm, and the very first step is to get a quack. And I say, you don't say any words into the call, but you wanted your tongue to hit the roof of your mouth twice, or it's like, well, it's starting at the bottom of your mouth, and then it's rising up to the top to stop the note. And that's just hot air coming up, a little bit of voice, but not too much voice. Forming the quack with my hand. All right, we'll start with you.
Never, the first time blowing a duck call.
So, hold on. So lip placement. Is it like I'm drinking a bottle?
This is important because some people blow with very tight lips. Some people open up completely. Uh-huh. You want to find a middle ground, and the mouthpiece on these ensigns is very small. So, yeah, just like you're, drinking water. Okay, so you're not blowing from the diaphragm, and you want it to be very sharp air going into the call. And I'm going to say, teaching duck calling is very difficult. Mm-hmm. You can get the basics, but then you got to go blow for hours on end to figure out how to get the quack.
Yeah.
So, and you can put a little bit of voice into the call. I'm humming a little bit. It gives a little more raspiness.
Okay.
Just do that. Now keep your hand open. Give it a little voice and grunt. Keep your hand open. Okay. Don't even worry about your hand. Like you're saying hut. And don't let any air, your lips have to be tight on the call.
Okay.
Don't let any air escape outside of your lips. All right, your turn. All right, you got it a little closer. So you got the sound down, and then you just got to form the quack by cutting the air off with your tongue, hitting the roof of your mouth. That's it. That's it right there. That's the quack. You got the quack down. Duck calling is a pretty important part of hunting ducks. There's some different types of calling that you can do. There's a lot of different species that you can hunt, but the generic duck call is emulating the mallard hen. So this right here is a single reed duck call. This is a more advanced call. And say you're out there in the marsh and you see, ducks flying over kind of low and they fly away. You do what we call a comeback call. It's like a comeback or a greeting call. It's just like 5 to 7 notes. And ducks in the wild, they all have different voices. They have different cadences. So some of them have more of a deep voice, so you can give it back pressure. So you can sound like multiple ducks out there, some with a higher pitched voice, some with a lower pitched voice. So basically, it's the quack 5 to 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And with each note, the notes become shorter and shorter. You can go up to 7, 8, 9. No. Go ahead.
So am I doing a hand now?
Well, don't worry about the hand because that's a little more advanced. Okay. hut. Yeah.
Huh.
Getting there. It's not the worst I've heard for a beginner. All right.
For never having blown a duck call, that's great.
I mean, truthfully, there are ducks that would respond to that.
Yeah.
You want to
Hear the difference there.
You want to really, I don't know,
Tone it
sharp
down.
air. Air control is the biggest part of duck calling. You want to keep the same amount of air going into the call. The same speed of air going into the call. There's a better physics word for this, but and the air's traveling over the top of my tongue and between there and it's in the roof of my mouth, and I'm guiding it in with my tongue.
Okay.
And stopping the note with my tongue hitting the roof of my mouth. Keeping the cheeks tight. Your abs should be tight because you should be blowing from the diaphragm. Huh? So the feed call is when they're out there and they're in shallow water and the mallard hens are getting real excited and they're feeding around with their buddies and they're going. That's a single mallard hen. Now, if you want to sound like a bunch of mallard hens, you kind of speed it up. That's like, 20 or so mallard hens all calling together. The great Phil Robertson says, don't do the feed call unless the water is 12 inches or less, because we're hunting, these are for puddle ducks mainly, which are dabblers, the mallards, pintail, teal, widgeon, ducks that do mainly feed in shallow water. But so you would mainly want to do this in shallower wetlands if you're, out there hunting mallards. If mallards are out landing in a deep pond and they're just loafing, maybe feeding is probably not the most accurate representation. So the feed call is just when they're excited and they're just. But that's a little more advanced. The simple version of it is. And I really get in character, there's a mallard over here.
Kind of look like a duck when you're doing that, yeah.
You just become the duck.
Be the duck.
You're saying tick, tick, tick. You're giving it some voice.
Can you do it without the call? It's like you're beatboxing.
That's it. Yeah. Give it voice. That's the feed. And you got to get creative with it. And then you can start rolling it.
Oh, like side to side?
I mean, you can do that. You don't have to.
That's him being one with the duck.
That's the
That's
showmanship.
you getting in character. Yeah. Give voice. Give it voice. There you go. All right. That's good.
I lose it. It goes away so quick.
The biggest caveat with duck calling is you don't want to overcall.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever watch ducks, and we're a couple of wildlife nerds here, photographers, and we watch and observe ducks, they're not always just yelling and screaming all the time. And if ducks are responding to your decoys without calls, don't call. And so when ducks are first coming at you, maybe be very, very soft with your calling. You can give them something just to get their attention. And the only time you really want to start calling aggressively is when they're flying away and they're losing interest. So they're coming at me and maybe I give them a little feed. And then they start leaving. I'm come back here, come back here, come hang out with us. Because ducks, they're very social. They're social animals, and that there's safety in numbers. So it's beneficial for, if there's only one or two ducks on the water, they want to build up their flock. So they're, and if they start working and they start showing interest, you can give them just the feed. When the ducks are committed, stop calling. Because then you run the risk of just scaring them away.
So basically, if you have ducks, don't draw attention to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. So you just using some basic understanding of duck behavior, you can use your calls more strategically. Some people just get really call happy and they just want to blow their calls all morning long and scare all the ducks away. But
That's what I do.
and you know, some ducks will respond. Every species of duck is different. Some are a little more call shy than others. Pintail, I just mainly whistle at it. Should have brought a whistle, but with a whistle you can make up to 10 different species sounds. But all right, so ducks are flying in. You pick up your call. Give it some voice. All right, that's a routine.
He's gonna be
That's
out.
it.
He's gonna be outdoing me in minutes. So this is a question I have.
Okay.
Usually not duck hunting by yourself. Some guys do. So it's generally a group activity.
Yeah.
So what would a good routine be? Because not everybody should be blowing the same thing. Because if you're trying to mimic a lot of ducks, from my thought process, you don't want to just be doing everybody going crazy
Right,
on the
yeah.
duck call. Do you like relegate? Like you call this, I'll do the feed call. I'm really good at it. I'm gonna do the feed call. You just let out a couple quacks, and the new guy that's never called before, you get a whistle and you get to blow it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, with a group of hunters that is experienced together, they kind of know what to do. I love feeding off of other people calling because it like really gets you in character. It's like we're talking to each other, and like if someone's like they're coming off of if they're coming off of a feed call, I'm in the background going. And yeah, just mixing it up. But yeah, I mean, you can if you have to just tell one person's going to feed, one person's going to do some quacks, and try to make it as realistic as possible. And yeah, it's really cool when you do find that chemistry in the duck blind and everybody's calling together and the ducks are responding well. It's really amazing.
All right.
It is.
We'll wrap up this video, but all the ducks are flying away. Let's call them back in, boys. Yeah, they all flew away. Well, thanks, Andrew. Thanks,
that was
man.
awesome. Yeah.
Awesome information for people. And thanks for these badass duck calls.
thank
He
you.
personally blew them.
Shot game calls. I tune these calls myself.
I basically kissed Andrew. Well, thanks, dude.